Hi, so today we're going to start off with an 820 2879 board that only charges the battery when it is off or asleep, which is annoying. Now this board honestly was an embarrassment for me for the amount of time that it took to figure this out. Firstly, while I've solved many no charging or not turning on issues, I've never ever had only charges when it's asleep or off and does not charge when it's on. That is just absurd to me and confusing. And secondly, it wasn't obvious liquid or physical damage. So let me show you what I mean by obvious liquid or physical damage. This one does not have any obvious liquid damage. So I'm going to show you what we wound up replacing just to give you an idea. It was this resistor here and this resistor above it, which is actually really fucked up looking, and I should replace that if they actually improve the job. But anyway, it works. And as you can see, the probe points around this look totally fine. There's nothing funny about them. Now let me see if I can show you on a dead board what I mean by probe points looking fucked up. The board actually has a way of telling you where to start looking when something doesn't work. So before I use my brain, I can get a hint. Let me find a board here that I can use as an example. These are all dead as shit, and like I've used these to set up profiles on the BGA machine, so they don't even have, most of them don't even have CPUs or GPUs. They're totally fucked. So if I drop them, I don't care. Okay, so you see how some of these probe points right by this connector are red, really brown, like, can I reach my hand? Here we go, like that. They're fucked. And you can see that they're fucked. They're like this little red probe point here. Come on, focus, you fucking piece of shit. Alright. There we go. Okay. Now that's not a water damage indicator. Those are actual probes on the motherboard, so that instead of having to measure at a component lead, when these component leads are really small, it allows you to just measure at those points. It makes life a lot easier when you're measuring around. Anyway, a lot of the times those points will be bright red or really fucked or have corrosion on them or even be missing. And that will give me an idea, hey, start here. Here's a hint. So when the board is not physically or liquid damaged, and you have no probe points like that that are off, and the board itself has an issue that I've never experienced before, I wind up looking like a complete jackass trying to figure it out. And that's where I was here. So the board charges the battery just fine when it's asleep or off, but when you take it out of sleep, it doesn't do it. And I looked around this for quite a bit, and I simply couldn't figure it out, because at first I didn't even notice the pattern. I just thought that it wasn't charging. I didn't notice that when I closed it that it would start charging, because most of the times when I would close the computer to start working on it and remove the board, the first thing that I was doing was ripping out the charger, because I'm not going to take all the screws out of this while the thing's on. So it took me at least a day to figure the fucking pattern out that it's not charging the battery unless it's in sleep mode, which I just feel retarded for, but I guess, you know, live and learn. So, onto what actually fixed it. So there are these two resistors over here, and their job is to sense the current that's coming through from the adapter. And there's also a similar circuit for the battery that's meant to measure the voltage coming from the battery. Now, this is something that I didn't know was here before, and, you know, again, I'm totally open to people going, oh my god, you didn't know that, and you fix motherboards? You're an idiot! I've always been open to saying what it is I don't know, because as one of my great mentors and first employers said, everything that I've learned in life worthwhile was from not being afraid to show just how stupid I am. If you don't tell people that you don't know something, they'll never have an opportunity to tell you what it is you don't know. Anyway, so there are two resistors here, and their job is to sense the current coming from the adapter. Now, what those two resistors do, there's one on each side of a resistor from the charger. So you have the charger. The charger itself is going through a bunch of transistors that tell it whether or not it should come on and send voltage or not send voltage. And at the end of that, there's a resistor that's 0.02 ohms, something like 0.02 ohms. Let's look at it on the schematic here. Can you see how bright this table is? I've always dreamed of having a work environment this bright. So, by the way, since I didn't get enough shelves at IKEA. I have a wire coming from the PCI Express of my data recovery machine that is going over this monitor, which is being used as a pulley to keep the lights up on this side of the table. until IKEA gets the fucking shelves in stock that I need, and then it goes over here. That's 5 LED strips. That is just ridiculously bright, and 3 of them are actually different brands and different color tones, so you get almost the full spectrum of lighting. So let's back to work here. Okay, where are we here? Okay, so yeah, the charger is coming through here, here. So right here, R7020. So this is a 0.02 ohm resistor. There's going to be a voltage drop across this, but it's going to be so fucking small and inconsequential that it's not going to actually affect the functionality of the computer, because again, it's 0.02 ohms. So you have this here. Whoops, I'm not pointing to where I'm supposed to be. Let me zoom out. Okay, so this is the resistor. This is the charger. Now over here you have a resistor that's going to the ISL, and on the other side of this you got a resistor that's going to the ISL. The point of this is to measure the current that is being used. So now the thing is, the current that is being used is going to affect the voltage drop here. The voltage drop is going to be affected by the current that is actually being pulled by the computer. So by measuring the voltage drop, which is something this can do, this chip cannot measure current, but it will measure a voltage drop across 2 different points. If you give it those 2 different points, it can actually deduce what amount of current the computer is using. Now this is supposed to be 10 ohms, and this is supposed to be 10 ohms, so that on each side of this you get an even measurement here. Now one of these was 500 kiloohms, and the other one was 2.8 million ohms. So this was getting a completely fucked up reading. Not only was the power going to this chip so low that it probably couldn't even fucking detect or read anything at all, but this was so out of whack that it would have thought either that there's a huge inrush of current or that there's no current being used or some sort of stupid silly shit, because these were off by a magnitude of about 5 times, whereas here they're equal. Now, what I don't understand, and what, I'd love for somebody to tell me, is if it noticed that there was a ridiculous amount of current being used, why doesn't it just turn the machine off altogether? Because again, the only thing that I can deduce here is that when the machine is on, it's using more power, and since the circuit that detects how much power is coming from the charger is fucked, that when the computer is on, it probably thought, oh my god, it's using way too much power, let me turn off charging to the battery. Why wouldn't it, in addition to that, also turn off power to the machine itself? Because it thinks it's grabbing too much. Am I wrong? Am I right? Is there something I'm missing? I would absolutely love to be educated because I enjoy learning. Anyway, so when we replace these two, as you can see, it's charging, and when I turn the computer on, I got the fan spinning, and this. Let's see. You can see the reflections of all those LEDs, which is total overkill, but I love it. And you got the Apple on. It is still charging, and I'm up to 73%, and before I started making this video, I was at something like 14. So I'm winning. But yeah, my question is, if it thought that there was so much current coming through when it was on that it wanted to stop charging the battery, why not just stop turning the computer on? Like, isn't turning the computer on... If this adapter is getting skullfucked so bad that it doesn't have the ability to charge the battery, if the computer thinks that's true, wouldn't that adapter be going on fire just from powering the computer on? Again, maybe I'm missing something, and again, I would absolutely love to learn. So by all means, if you know more than me, I would love to hear from you. Either way, it does work, and that's, as much as I'd like to know more, I'm happy that I solved the problem, because that means that I can go ahead and get the money. Now, another thing I wanted to make, a point I want to make here, is I get a lot of live chat requests or phone calls from people saying my battery doesn't charge, what chip controls the charging? I can tell you what chip controls the charging. Here, let me zoom in on it right here. But frankly, having that information is not going to help you. Here we go, so it's that. Well, what's the point of knowing what chip controls the charging if there are many different reasons that it could not be working? Now, for example, if somebody comes in and says their screen is cracked, okay, I have to replace the screen. But if somebody comes in and says my computer is slow, Well, it could be slow because their home internet sucks. It could be slow because they have a virus. It could be slow because their drive is dying. It could be slow because their fan died, and the machine is running really hot and throttling itself. There are many different reasons, so I can't really help you without having an idea of what's going on. And sometimes I'll say, there could be many different things. Can you measure this, that, or the other? And people will just think I'm being rude or a dick, or I'm trying to hold this information hostage from them. And some people have gone so far as to say "fuck you" on live chat over this ridiculous shit. When I'll state this, and honestly, you have to use your brain. I mean, again, I don't even understand some of what it is I did, but I did have to use my brain in order to deduce it. So if I don't even know what I'm doing some of the time, and I've been doing this for many years, don't think that you're just going to replace one thing and that's going to fix all of your problems. Another example, people will often ask about this chip over here, because it'll get corroded, the 7149, and on the older 2530 and 2327 boards, that is a HAT 1127. Now, this is a transistor, and it has 3 legs that are redundant, and oftentimes with liquid damage, one of those legs will be completely corroded to shit. And people will ask me, what is the name of that so I can replace it? You can go ahead and replace it, but that chip is used to taking 18, 19 volts, and it is it's a transistor with a huge heat sink. It's not going to die. If your board, if this thing actually managed to blow, if you managed to blow this shit up, you would not have a motherboard anymore. This would be fucking vaporized beyond any repair. I have not replaced this thing once in many, many years. But people will just see this one thing is burned. How do I replace it? Or I want a new charger IC. And again, unfortunately, it is not that easy. There is really no shortcut around using your brain. Don't replace the backlight IC because you have no backlight. Don't replace the charger IC because it's not charging. And again, if you go ahead and do it, I encourage you to go ahead and do it, because I don't want you to take my word for it. You're not going to believe me. I want you to actually do it to figure out that it doesn't work for yourself and that there is no shortcut to using your brain.